So about 4 years ago, our path crossed, and he's popularly known in the eastern region for cultivating crops like rubber, cocoa, and plantain. Is an interesting get-together again, and today we are not just going to talk about the old things, but something new that is happening, which has to do with coconut nursery production. And seated next to me to tell me more about this business and what got him into it is Kwame and Siako, aka I don't want to mention that one. Kwame, nice meeting you again.
Nice meeting you.
Oh my goodness, it's been 4 years already.
Yeah.
So how has it been?
It's been great. It's been great. I understand the difficulties we all have in this country.
Yeah.
We all count. I'm counting my blessings.
Great. Let's refresh the memory of those who might not have seen your story 4 years ago. Your schooling days in UK, and then you got back to Ghana and then refused to go. When we want to go? Me, I want to go. Let's get to know briefly again who Kwame is for the purpose of those who have not seen the interviews we've done 4 years ago.
Kwame, I would simply say is somebody who is just so passionate about agric. I think coming September will be my 12th year of being in agriculture, being in farming, 12th year.
Right.
So I think the journey started somewhere in 2012 when I decided to go into rubber. So currently I have about 94 acres of rubber. Then I moved into cocoa, which I'm doing about 160 acres of cocoa. I like the challenge, so I decided to take on something very different. Right. And that is coconut. So I think among all these the three crops that I'm planting, coconut is something that I really enjoy. Oh, really? And yeah, I think I really enjoy doing coconut. Okay. Not just because of how sweet coconut tastes, but I think it's a lovely tree crop. Okay. And I think people need to really understand more about coconut. So I mean, we're here to just brief people awesome. Talking about its sweetness and a lovely crop, is that what made you got started or something else? I think it's more of diversification. Okay. Where I was looking at diversifying and looking for something different to do. As I said, the first focus was to do rubber, then cocoa. I've done a lot of things, you know. I don't even want to talk about it, like vegetables, almost a lot of things. Yeah. But I think I chanced on coconut. I mean, where I realized was something that Ghanaians were really patronizing. Yeah. So the interest, got to me. So I decided to just diversify into coconut as well. Okay. And how will you describe the experience so far? It's been great. I know a lot of people want to go into agriculture. Yeah. And I would say coconut is somehow one of the easiest tree crops. Okay. I mean, I say easiest, not to say that it's easy to do. But then if you follow the right procedures and the right methods, it's not that difficult. Okay. And then a lot of Ghanaians I realize we don't have the time. Most of the people who want to go into agriculture, one way or the other, don't have the time to be in the farm throughout. 24/7. Exactly. I think coconut is one of the farms that you can have where you can be a bit absent. Okay. Because it doesn't really demand your presence. You know, doesn't demand a lot. But then, as I said, you need to get it right. Okay. You can't just do it anyhow. Right. You know, you can't just do it. I understand. With all the tree crops, having it being cocoa, coconut, rubber, mango, cashew, it all demands time. Okay. Likewise, coconut. Okay. But then, with my experience, I think it's one of the things that most people can invest in, where they can feel very relaxed and, you know, visit the farms as to when they make the time to go there. Okay. So, yeah. A lot of people are interested in coconut farming, especially because of its profitability and also the endless benefits that you get from coconut. However, most people also get it wrong, especially when they are going to buy the seedling for planting. And so I want us to touch on how can a novice or even someone is already into farming but want to diversify like you have done, how am I able to identify a hybrid and non-hybrid coconut seedling? A very good question. I would want to go back a little bit to share how I even got into coconut nursery.
Go ahead.
So I think 2017, that was when I wanted to embark on having a coconut farm. Fortunately, I like to do farms on a large scale. I don't really believe in 2, 3, 4, 5 acres. Not to say if you want to have an acre coconut farm is bad. But then I was looking at doing coconut up to about 200 acres. So the seedling selection as to what exactly I'm planting was something I was very, very interested in. Not to say there weren't nursery operators around. I saw a lot of them. But then when the right questions, I call it right questions because I did my research. I ask. They are not able to really give me the answers to the question that I'm asking them. So I think it was a bit difficult for me when it comes to getting my seedlings for my coconut farm. You know, like the rubber was easy because right where I have my rubber farms, there's a company, RPG, Rubber Plantation Ghana. So they have the seedlings. The cocoa farm, you know, we have a subsidiary for Cocoa Board. That's the SPD, seed production department, who goes to the producing the seedlings for us. But with the coconut, I realized there was nothing like that, you know. So that's when I met one agronomist, Dr. Asare, who I met, you know, through research, who explained things to me, who gave me some numbers, then I embarked on it. But prior to that, I still went ahead to purchase some few seedlings from some few nursery operators. But subsequently, I started nursing my own seedlings in my farm, just to transplant them into the field. Exactly. So I think I had a lot of interest. I mean, when people came to the farm, they saw my seedlings and, are you selling them? Are you selling them? And I started giving them exactly what got me to start this nursery. So with a little experience, the question, going back to the question you asked me, how do you identify between
the hybrid?
Because I get it a lot. When you go to a typical nursery or a nursery operator who is selling coconut, I mean, the first question people ask is, I want hybrid. I want hybrid. I want the one that germinates within, that start producing fruit within 3 years, within 5 years. And it's a very good question. But how do you? It's kind of impossible. Impossible to identify a hybrid seedling by just picking the nuts. It's impossible because you have to be in the farm, you have to see the tree to where the nut is coming from. You can easily identify a hybrid tree. So out of the hybrid tree, you get the hybrid nuts. And I was a bit shocked because I mean, we go out there to the nursery operators asking them, is it hybrid? They will tell you, yes, it's hybrid. Sometimes it's true. I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to say that you're lying, but how are you sure these are hybrid seedlings? So that's when I was a bit excited because I was picking my nuts from a hybrid farm. I was producing my own nursery for my own farm. So I have all the benefit a hybrid farm can have in my farm. So you can't identify unless you're in the farm. Sometimes you can try to use the ovalness of the nuts, but it still doesn't make any sense to me. You have to be in the farm to really know whether this nursery is hybrid or not. You have to be in the farm to really identify. If not, I don't see any way you can identify between a hybrid and not a hybrid farm, not a hybrid nursery. There's no way. It's practically impossible. So you have to be in the farm, see the tree. And that's why, so let me go back to it. Usually when you read more about coconut, they will tell you that it's better and it's ideal to nurse seedlings out of a farm that is about 20 years plus. It's not because of anything. One, you know, when you have a hybrid farm that's about 20 years, you can clearly see its features. You can see the nuts, you can see the tree itself. You can really identify that it's hybrid or not. Because if you start using coconut that is about 5, 6, 7 years when it starts fruiting to cultivate as a cultivar, to cultivate, produce nursery, it's kind of difficult to identify it. So usually it's better that you have a farm that's about 25, 30 years. Most of my farms, you know, and just to add it up, I don't even produce my nursery in Ghana. They're all from Ivory Coast. You know, and most of my farms are usually 60 years, 40 years, 35 years. And you can see a 35-year-old farm that has that height. And you can easily identify.
Okay.
And they'll tell you this same farm is 35 years, but it's not hybrid. You can see how tall the whole farm is. And let me just buttress with and end it with that question that why do people even want hybrid seedlings? Why? Why hybrid? Does it mean the other nurseries are not good?
Yeah.
They are good. They're equally good. But you know, the term hybrid, I mean, hybrid in the sense that anything hybrid is taken through a process where one is a bit resistant to diseases, one is a bit robust, is susceptible to diseases and all of that. And the most important thing about hybrid is hybrid coconut is the maturity.
Okay.
As to when you plant it and how long it will take for you to get the fruit. So I think that answers the question. You need to be in a hybrid farm.
Okay.
To know that this farm is hybrid before you can pick a nut. If not, it's impossible.
Okay. So what's the capacity of this production center?
We are currently here, we had about 40,000.
Okay.
But we're moving them out, so now we have about 20-something thousand over here.
Okay, so what we have here, are they all hybrid or non-hybrid?
All hybrid seedlings.
Okay.
All pure, proper hybrid seedlings.
All right.
And I think I want to buttress with this, where I even prefer people to come to my farm. You know, I have a 170-acre coconut farm.
Oh.
Yeah, sure. So usually when people come over here, I tell them, you don't have to even listen to all that I have to say to you. But if you have the opportunity, visit my farm, see what I've done, then you can at least speak to it.
Okay.
It's all hybrid, pure hybrid seedlings.
Okay. Now, when you drive around Ghana, you see bits and pieces of coconut here and there, some tall, some short, and all that. But where do coconut grow best in Ghana? In what soil? And what are some of the regions you can mention?
A very important question. And you see, farming is supposed to be taken very serious. And sometimes it baffles me when people get up one day, probably make some money, and, you know, they just want to plant something. Not to say, I mean, Ghana, you can plant coconut everywhere.
Yeah.
But there are ideal locations. There are places where it's better. Let me talk about the soil.
Okay.
So with soil, you're looking at a well-drained, let me just say, well-drained sandy soil.
Okay.
And to say sandy soil, I know when we went to JSS, we thought about the properties of a sandy soil.
Exactly.
Where it's loose, right? It's not sticky. You know, it's not sticky, it's loose. It has a very low water retaining capacity. What it means is it can drain water pretty fast.
Okay.
Coconut does well in a well-drained sandy soil.
Okay.
And not to say that the other lands can't thrive well with coconut. It can.
Okay.
But then just say you want to do coconut on a very large
commercial scale.
1,000 acres, 500 acres. These things are necessary. You can't just get up and say you have 1,000-acre land, so you want to start planting coconut. So you just start. No. So I believe that we need to do the right thing when it comes to agric. Okay. Because it's expensive.
Right.
And we get frustrated when it doesn't work.
Of course.
But then it's because of the things we take for granted. We have to be very careful when it comes to choosing a site for coconut. As I said, it's practically possible for coconut to thrive in any part of our country. But then you're looking at production. You know, you're looking at production. That's why it's specifically stated that well-drained sandy soil, you know, is best and ideal. And to buttress
the regions,
you know, it has to be a place where rainfall pattern is massive. Like, you know, a very good rainfall areas. So talking about the central regions and all that, it's ideal. And that is where we get most of that coconut from, the western regions as well. They are all close to the coastal side. So realistically, you can conclude by saying all the sand soil within those areas are almost sandy. You know, not to say coconut doesn't do well, let's say it's typical place like the Ashanti region. Coconut will do well over there. But it's a bit different. You barely find the right sandy, you know, the sea kind of land around Ashanti region. It's better to do it over there as well. But on a large commercial farm, you need to really take into consideration which kind of land. And just to add up, it's not necessarily, you have to do your text. You see, Ghanaians, I realized, because I meet a lot of farmers, let me just tell you what happened about 2 weeks ago, where a farmer, I call him a farmer, though he doesn't live in Ghana, he lives in Canada. And he got my contact, he called me, and he's been calling me to go visit his farm.
Okay.
He has about 60-acre coconut farm somewhere in Oda. And I couldn't make it because I was very busy.
Yeah.
So he was sent to Ghana somewhere in May. And he called me that when he comes, if I can get opportunity to visit his farm. So, yeah, I nodded. He came around and took a long story, so we visited his farm.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, the things I saw over there was a bit like, this is very serious, you know? And the farm is about 6-7 years, and it's very poor. So I think he got it wrong from even the seedlings. They got it wrong from the planting distance. They got it wrong with the soil. They got it wrong with everything.
Oh my.
So you see all the investments
that's
that
a lot of money
he's put into this farm with the time. And he is okay. He doesn't really need much. He's just excited to be a farmer. But then it's so depressing to go through something like this. So I think the right questions need to be asked. You know, the right soil needs to be, you know, used when you're getting to coconut farming. You just don't get up and say, coconut does well. People can even plant coconut in water. You know, in water, marshy areas.
Right.
No, you don't
it's
do
not
that.
Done.
It's not done.
Okay.
You know, coconut is just like any other tree crop. Just like cocoa. It needs a you know, very good soil to grow very well. Yeah. So I think that's the buttress with it.
Okay.
So, yeah, a place where the soil is more sandy, a very good rainfall pattern. Coconut needs a lot of water. You know, not to say the water should be retained around the coconut, but the soil should be able to drain a lot of water. It shouldn't hold the water.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm sure you're seeing a lot of interviews about coconut on our channel, but this has become very important for us to reiterate and you know, educate you people, because most of you are wasting money or losing very, very good amount of money because you lack knowledge, because you don't have the right people to buy from. I'm going for a quick breather. When I come back, Kwame will tell me more about if I have just 1 acre and I want to go into coconut production or farming, how many seedlings will I be needing to actually do my 1 acre farm? I'll be right back. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying. If you're just tuning in, you're watching The Ghanaian Farmer. We encourage you to share your views globally. If you're watching us, you have any question, you have any contribution, share with us. But this is about how you can identify the quality, the right type of coconut seedling to buy for your farm. Don't go waste your money and come back crying. But before we went on break, I was asking, if I have just 1 acre, it's a test case, and I want to go and plant, how many nuts are we looking at?
Okay, so an acre of coconut with a spacing of 7.5 meters, and that is actually an ideal spacing, 7.5 meters, and that's about 25 feet.
Okay.
We'll be able to accommodate about 70 to 75 trees.
Okay.
70 to 75 trees.
Right.
Most people come and they will tell you, I have an acre,
yes.
I want to put about 120. And you advise them, no.
It's too much.
It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
You know, what you put on the ground is what you get. So that is the preferred and required, you know, planting distance and the quantity that is used. So at a distance of 7.5 meters apart, that's about 25 feet.
Okay.
You have close about 70 to 75 trees on an acre of land.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a special way of planting coconut in the soil? Is there any special way?
Yes, there isn't any special way. You know, I think when it comes to general farming, a lot of people probably will show you how to do this, how to do that. But you would have to try and find something that works for you.
Okay.
You see, we don't have irrigations in Ghana. We don't even irrigate our farms, right? So finding a means to plant coconut that will sustain it, that will help it thrive better. Sometimes you would have to try and coin your own way.
Oh, okay.
You understand?
Okay.
So what I do specifically, usually, I mean, I consult for a lot of farms.
Yes.
And I help them in planting their coconut. You know, coconut we even call coconut as a thirsty tree.
Okay.
Because it needs water.
Yes.
Not to say that there's supposed to be so much water around it, but it needs water at least every 2 weeks after planting.
Okay.
It needs to be watered.
Okay.
So there isn't any special way of planting coconut. Sometimes when it comes to general farming, and that, as I said, I've been a farmer for the past 12 years. Exactly. September was my 12th year. And sometimes my friends don't even believe it. You'd have to find your own way, coin your own way, do things you think is working for you. You don't just go out there and watch a video on YouTube with someone doing something and you want to replicate that same thing. You know, the lands are different. So try and find ways and means to do things you think is benefiting you. Okay. So one of the things I do when I'm planting coconut is how I dig my hole. Okay. You know, I dig the hole such that it's so big where I have a lot of space around it. Put the coconut in the middle. Yeah. Cover the soil. Yeah. Cover the coconut with the soil. But then there's still a lot of space around it. What does that do? Yeah. See, we don't irrigate our farms. Yes. And see, the rainfall patterns are pretty poor sometimes. So you need coconut. As I said, coconut is usually called the thirsty tree. It needs water to dry very well. So leaving that space around the coconut tree, when it rains, sort of like you have some water collected around it. So it means if it's not going to rain for even a month or even 2 weeks, you have that space around the coconut being very moist, which will aid in proper growing of your coconut tree. Okay. So there isn't any kind of like special way of planting coconut, but you do things that will help you, things that will make your farm do well. Yeah. So you need to find ways. Okay. As I said, farming is not something you can learn and say you are done learning. You learn every day. You keep learning. You keep learning every day. So there isn't any special way. As in somebody trying to tell you, it can work. If somebody is trying to demonstrate something to you, it means the person have tried it. But it doesn't mean when you try it, it's going to work for you. Okay. So that is my way. Okay. Try and dig the hole that big, put the coconut in the middle, leave a bit of space around it, where there will be some water collected when it rains. So at least if it's not raining, it will still use that water. Okay, that's interesting. I've not seen that before, but I can't wait for him to demonstrate for us to see. That's a tip for you. So when it comes to the nursery, if I buy the nuts, how long does it take for me to start seeing the leaves shooting? Great. So we start coconut by picking the dry nuts. Okay. Usually it's advisable that the nuts drops themselves. Oh, okay. You know, it's usually not advisable to climb the tree to pluck dry nuts. In terms, it has to be well dried before it can germinate. Okay. If it's not well dried, it will never germinate. Okay. So usually when we go to some of the farms that we start our nurseries from, usually we don't have enough nuts. So we are forced to climb the trees and to pluck some of the dry nuts. And to our surprise, there were times the nuts start germinating even on top of the tree. Oh, really? You can see it protrudes just a little bit. Okay. Whilst it's still hanging on the tree. Yeah. And then that's one of the difference between the hybrid and the non-hybrid seedlings. I think the hybrid seedlings have a very soft shell, sort of, where germinations are pretty easy. So if you happen to have a nut that is already germinated, it means easy to go. Okay. It means within some few months, it goes really fast. Okay. But the germination is a problem. There are times you can go under a typical tree, you have about, let's say, 100 nuts, dry nuts dropped. Yeah. Out of these 100 nuts, you can have, let's say, 30 germinated. Okay. And it's just natural. It's not something out of anything. Yeah. You know, so you have to notch it. Usually we call what we call notching. Okay. Notching is where we cut just a bit. Okay. Let's pick one that you've cut. So something like this. Okay. So we notch this coconut. You know, coconut has this shell. Yeah. Where when there's water poured on it, it will just drop off. It won't get into the coconut. You're trying to force water into the coconut seedling to aid germination. Okay. So the whole idea of notching, when we cut a bit of this space, is to get water into the coconut, where it can aid fast germination. Okay. Right. Okay. So when germination starts, it takes close to about 6 months for transplanting. It gets to the height where you can transplant the coconut. Okay. So from, let's say, from the time you pick the nuts to transplanting, it's about 6 months. Okay. Yeah. So what? It takes 6 months here before a farmer comes to buy? Exactly. Oh my, I see. Exactly. Okay. So when I'm coming to buy the nuts to go and transplant,
what time of the day do you recommend I come by to buy my nuts?
Yeah, this is a general question where I'll answer for all tree crops.
Okay.
And these are the mistakes we do as farmers as well.
Yes.
Tree crops, mostly, predominantly in Ghana, we don't irrigate them.
Okay.
What it means is we plant them early part of the year when the rain sets in.
Yeah.
There isn't any particular day as in planting in the morning or in the afternoon, but it should be planted early.
Okay.
Early, I mean the months. We know somewhere in April, May, we start getting rains in Ghana.
Okay.
It's ideal to plant any tree crop.
Okay.
Being it rubber, being it cocoa, being it cashew, coconut, very early. What you're trying to do is to help this tree crop to establish very well. So it means when you plant them early, let's say you plant it by May, you're done planting your seedlings. It means it gets all the rains. That's, we call them, Ghana, we have the major rainy season and the minor.
Exactly.
So the major rainy season is usually between April, May, June, July. Then we have a bit of a drought. Then August, September, October, November, we have the minor rainy season. So if you plant early, it means you have all this rain from, May, June, July, all the way through to about December.
Yeah.
So you have a well-established tree crop, whether being coconut or cocoa or something like that. I get a lot of people who come around somewhere, in September and they want to buy seedlings to go plant. Because we start nursing seedlings somewhere September, October. That's when we start doing our preparations.
Okay.
And I tell them it's not ideal because you're not sure. Because we are entering we are in the minor season and there's going to be drought.
Yeah.
So as to a specific time of planting, no, but it needs to be planted early. At least your land preparation should start early. By January, February, March, you should be done with your land preparation. By May, you have to finish planting your seedlings. Okay. And that will help you have a very good seedling growing for you.
But what if I have irrigation?
That is also okay.
Okay.
But there is something different. There's a big difference between natural rainfall and irrigation.
Yes.
You can't 100% rely on irrigation.
Okay.
Especially with tree crops. It doesn't really need a lot of water. If you can add irrigation to your tree crops like coconut, there you go. It's excellent. It's ideal.
Right.
You can, it does really well.
Okay.
But then because you don't want to spend so much money.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not saying it's not necessary. It's very necessary. If you have the finances to have an irrigated coconut farm, it's a plus for you.
All right.
But then if you plant it early and it's well established by November, December, why you don't even need any irrigation?
In that case, how long then after my transplanting will I be waiting to start plucking and selling or enjoying my coconut?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. A lot of questions. When people come over here, brother, how long am I going to get coconut seedlings?
Yes.
I heard there is one that someone even said there's one that is even 2 years to start getting coconut. See, and this is not to say anything. Coconut, as I said earlier, thrives really well in sandy, well-drained sandy soil. Yeah. Right? And with the hybrid seedlings, you're looking at between 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. In my farms, in some of my farms, I demonstrated when I planted the seedlings. Yeah. When I transplanted, I took note of it when we did the transplant. In one of my farms, about 5-acre farm, like a plot where I demarcated and we did the planting, we realized that we had about 60% of the seedlings giving us flowers after the 3rd year. Oh. About 60%. Okay. You see, when somebody comes over here, probably they want to buy like one seedling or 2 or 3. And buying 3 seedlings and planting them and expecting maybe for it to give you fruits in, let's say, 3 years, 4 years, it's usually not realistic. I say it's not realistic because if you're doing a whole plantation, like a big farm, the soil nutrients is completely different from each part of the soil, exactly. Right? Each land. Yeah. You can have a big land, yes, but the nutrients at one particular spot is completely different. So it's usually proper and ideal to have some quantity of seedlings where you can now be very sure that are these really good quality seedlings. You can use 1 seedling or 2 seedling that you planted in your house as a yardstick to say it's not a good quality seedling. Maybe the soil that you even planted the seedling on it is not good. Yeah. It's not good quality, right? And you ask, how long? I said 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
I know with the hybrid seedlings, after the 3rd year, you see signs of flowers.
Okay.
You see signs of flowers after the 3rd year. But let me add this. It doesn't matter if you buy a hybrid seedlings and you don't go through the proper things you need to do for the coconut to thrive well.
Okay.
Everything needs to be met. You know, proper planting. Everything has to be equal.
All right.
So if everything is done well, I mean, farming, somebody say farming is too risky.
Of course it
Everything
is.
is risky.
It is.
Everything is risky.
Everywhere.
If you can do it right,
yes.
if you can do it very well, be guaranteed that at least, and if you know you are buying a right proper seedling, it's a very important thing. And that's one of the things people neglect.
Yeah.
Not just with coconut, I mean, everything we do.
Yeah.
Having it being vegetables or anything. You know, you have people.
It all starts from the seed.
Exactly.
Right.
You need the right seed to get the right, you know, I mean, whatever you see. The outcome is to get something better out of it. So why compromise on the initial I mean, nursery?
Yeah.
You don't compromise.
Okay.
Because if you compromise on the nursery, everything you're doing, whether it's 2 years or 3 or 5 years, it's all compromised.
Great.
You struggle.
Okay.
Right.
Since you have a coconut farm, you should be in the best place to tell me how many fruits am I likely to get on one plant, and of course, what would be the lifespan of a coconut tree?
So, ideally, it varies from region to region, as I said. When I go to Ivory Coast, where we start our nursery, and I see the kind of farms they have, with the kind of maintenance they are giving the farms, and you see that a typical coconut tree with a lot of nuts on it, I can't say you can have that same thing probably when you plant it. That's why I said it varies from region to region. The averages, on the average, when the coconut starts fruiting after, let's say, the 5th year, I mean, it's so tender and so young of the tree to carry a lot of trees, I mean, coconut, a lot of nuts at the time. You know, it's so tender, it's so young. So it can't hold a lot of, I mean, coconut. You know, coconut is very heavy.
Exactly.
So when they are very young, you don't expect much.
Okay.
But in the full maturity, we're looking at between, let's say, 5 to 15 years. When the coconut is well established, you are confident that you shouldn't have anything less than 100 nuts in a year.
Okay.
In a year, between 70 to 100.
On one
tree.
Okay.
70 to 100. And it can go all the way to 150. I went to a farm and I counted not less than 120 nuts on each of this tree.
That's
that I was
great.
Oh yeah,
that's great. Okay.
I counted not less than 120 nuts on each tree.
Okay.
But as I said, you can't say because you have 120, when you come buy the seedlings and you go plant it, you also expect you to have 120.
Of course.
Your care, your maintenance, your farm practices, the soil is a big determinant. So it's not always about what you do. Sometimes you do everything right, but you still not get that, you know, expected, you know, what you're looking for. You probably want to get 130 per tree.
Right.
But then I know that at least a poor farm that is properly taken care of, I mean, a poor soil that is well probably taken care of, the right fertilizer and all that, I mean, I think you should probably get something above 70 to 100 per tree for a year. A year.
Okay. And the lifespan will be, how long can a coconut tree?
Coconut, usually we call it the 3 generation. 3 generation means when you plant it, your kids will come meet it, and your kids' kids will come meet it. Usually they say about 60, 70 years.
Okay.
But then it can go more than 100 years. But you know, in farming, there's something called viability. It's not economically viable after some years because probably you'll be giving it too much care, too much attention, where the fruit that is giving you can't complement how much you're making out of it. So it becomes not economically viable at some point. I mean, I'm sure maybe after 70, 80 years, it's proper to probably start the farm all over again.
Okay, do coconut need fertilizer? And are there any specific fertilizer that coconut need?
Yes, coconut needs fertilizers, just like any other tree crop. People say, but then I think one of the easiest fertilizers you can find around, which is usually available, is a chicken manure. It responds so well to chicken manure. I don't think it's a heavy feeder of fertilizer. I don't think so. That's why it's a very robust plant. That's why I like it. It's robust and it's not too difficult to do. So with just a little fertilizer, as I said, you can do some of the inorganic fertilizers. the NPKs are all good for coconut. But I prefer people doing more of the organic, where they can embed a lot of the chicken manure around the coconut. You know, it keeps that space around the coconut very moist.
Okay.
Because it likes that.
Yeah.
So in as much as you can give it fertilizer like the NPKs, like the 15-15, it's also okay to give the organic manure, like inorganic manure.
Okay.
Inorganic fertilizers.
Yeah. And
to add it, to buttress it, do you know we give coconut salt?
Salt?
Drain.
Is it the big ones or the...
Adan salt.
Okay.
So you wonder why coconut thrives so well at the shore.
Yeah, exactly. Keta, Adan.
You have coconut and they are there for years.
Yeah.
So coconut does well having given it salt, because you probably will bring coconut to your farm. There's no salt content in the soil. So I read extensively and I started doing it in my farm, and I saw the response. A lot of people complain so much about my farm, it's not doing well, there are too many diseases here and there. And I think salt is the cure.
I see.
But it all depends on how you apply it.
We would go to his farm for him to show us that.
Exactly, because, and this is something that I consult a lot.
Right.
Sometimes for free. I love to do it. And people have so many issues on their coconut farms, and I get there and it's something very simple.
Simple. Okay.
Something very simple to do. You know, and because usually they are not there and they leave the farm for farm managers to take care of it, they're not able to identify this. Salt plays a very good role in coconut by applying it around the roots. Some you can even put a little bit of, you grind it and put a little bit into the leaves. It does really well. Okay.
You mentioned disease. Are there any disease that affect coconut? How do I prevent or cure it?
Great. So coconut, I realize usually predominantly it's the root rot, usually caused by fungus.
Okay.
Coconut is sweet, so you have every insect, like, you know, even rodents, attacking coconut.
Okay.
It's a sweet crop, so you need to really take care of it very well. One of the diseases that I find easy attacking coconut is the root rot, where usually when you're planting the seedling, you have a bit of termites and some, you know, in the soil. So they end up chewing the roots, which will prevent the coconut from growing. And it ends up killing the coconut. So the root rot, which there is a way to solve that issue with the root rot. And I see more of people complaining more of the weevils, you know, getting into the, like, in the middle part of the coconut, chewing the middle part that is supposed to germinate, that's supposed to grow very well. I mean, there are easy ways to cure these things. But then just to add it up, I went to somebody's farm who was complaining about this issue of having weevils and, you know, chewing their coconut. But I got to the farm and the farm was all bushy, a lot of weeds.
Okay.
So you can't curtail these weevils whilst you have a lot of weeds in your farm.
Exactly.
Where do you expect the weevils to go when you treat them? The moment you treat them, they will just jump into
the next one. The bush.
The bush.
Okay.
Where they will hide.
Yes.
So your coconut farm should be
free. Okay.
And it's a basic principle.
Right.
The moment you can keep it weed free, where there are many ways, you won't have a lot of insects hiding into the bush, which will end up going into your coconut to spoil it. So sometimes it's not really about focusing so much on the coconut, but it's about focusing so much on the kind of things you need to do in the farm, the maintenance, the weeding.
Right.
It's not really about the coconut. Because as I said,
the agronomy practices are very key. Okay, so once I have to wait for 3 years plus to start harvesting my first fruit, is there any form of or any type of crop I can intercrop with my coconut? And at what stage of the coconut am I allowed to do my intercropping?
Very, very good question. Very, very good question. I understand Ghanaians usually don't have a lot of farm lands. Yeah. So they like to intercrop. Let's cropping, we call it. Yes, coconut, you can do some intercropping. Yeah. But it has to be some specific crops. Okay. And I would generalize by saying vegetables. Things like tubers, like cassava, yam. No. Okay. I don't subscribe to those things. Okay. Because they are so heavy feeders on fertilizers. I mean, sorry, on nutrients. So I usually don't subscribe people intercropping tubers or creeping plants like, within coconut. But anything like vegetables, vegetables like tomatoes, garden eggs, okra, these can be planted within coconut.
Okay. And
it can be done right after you even plant the coconut, But as I said, not to say that cassava will have anything bad on coconut. Yeah, I visited somebody's farm like that. He's planted cassava throughout his farm.
Okay.
He has a big farm,
right,
and it was full of cassava. And I told him, boss, it's not done. And he said, nothing has happened to my farm. Okay. And I said, nothing will happen to your farm. I'm not saying the cassava will kill your coconut. It won't kill it. But the cassava will deplete the soil so much that no matter the fertilizer you introduce to the coconut, it won't do well. Okay. There are some key nutrients in the soil that is not replenished. You can't replenish them. It takes time. That's why we have what we call the fallow period in agriculture. Yeah, exactly. You just have to leave the soil to just stay for itself and it just regain its nutrients. For some time. You can never introduce any fertilizer to get that nutrients that is lacking in the soil. That's why I say it's not advisable to plant crops like cassava, yam, and other things in the coconut. And let me just buttress by saying coconut needs sunlight. Okay. Sunlight, plain sunlight. Right. You go to people's farms and you see coconut under trees, under shades. Coconut needs at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. Okay. Okay. So it's not something that you can just plant anywhere. Okay. You have to go through the processes. Okay. And if you do it well, you enjoy it. Are there any challenges associated with coconut production? Just as I mentioned earlier, with the diseases, that can be eliminated somehow. It can be controlled, and it needs to be controlled early. Apart from that, I would say the drought. Usually, as I said, you have to plant early. Yeah. So if you plant early, your chances of having a successful farm is higher. But then if you have to wait and start planting somewhere September, October, not to say it's bad to plant September, but you're not sure. Exactly, of the rain patterns. Sure. Yeah. If you have irrigation, like you asked earlier, that is okay. Okay. You can plant it, and you can irrigate your seedlings when you transplant them. So these are the challenges that people face. It's expensive. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. So it's not even the nursery. Farming is expensive, and I expect people to do it right. Okay. Get it right from the start, and you enjoy it. Okay. In as much as there are frustrations in it, you don't want to be frustrated so much. So try, take your time. If you're not ready, don't even start. Okay. I tell people, if you're not ready, don't start. All right. It's okay to say, I want to start something small, but then have in your mind that even that small thing is challenging. That small that you want to start is challenging. So be ready, be emotionally prepared before you get into anything, not just coconut farming. Okay. I know you are into the farming and the nursery production, but give and take, if you are asked to make a choice, will you stick to the nursery production and forfeit the farming, or you do the farming and forfeit? You are to choose one, not both. So one. I wasn't really looking forward to having a coconut nursery. Okay. It was never part of my plan. Right. I never even envisaged or thought about it. Okay. So I remember somewhere 2020 when I started my nursery in my farm. Kwame, my time. Choose one. When I started my nursery in my farm, I had this agri director beside me, and he saw my nursery and he loved them. Okay. And he told me, Kwame, just do a lot of these and sell. And I was a bit hesitant, but then I started doing it. And it's giving me the opportunity to, advise people, tell people what to do, the farming practices and all that. I'm sure if it was just my farm, I wouldn't have that opportunity. So it makes it very difficult. And you need to have the farm and have the nursery to complement. Because if somebody comes over here, usually I like them to visit the farm. All right. So they can see before they come. All right. Okay. How much is one? Call me. You don't have to say this on. Okay. So let us know your location and how we can find you. So we have 3 nursery sites. We have 3 nursery sites. One in Bojiase, not too far from Insawam. We have one on the Asaman Kese stretch. That is Asaman Kese Adesu stretch, and we have one in Koforidia. Okay. So we have nursery sites in all these locations. Okay. And we supply nationwide. Okay. Right? We supply nationwide. People within our enclave, let's say within Eastern region, Usually we do what we call free distribution, free supply, when you purchase from us some quantity. And we also don't only sell, we give consultancies.
Okay.
We advise people on what to do. And yeah, as I said, if you buy some quantity,
you do free delivery.
We do free delivery.
Your number, please, so that we'll be able to reach out to you.
0537 242574. 0537 242574. Yeah, and we're here for you.
Okay, so that's it. Kwame and Chibwe Siako. Thanks for mentioning the number and how we can reach out to you. But finally, any tips or advice to give to those who are already in it, those who are yet to start, so they can get it right? Because you had said it already, it's expensive. Being a small or big farm, it is expensive.
Yeah, simply put, I would say get it right from the start. By getting it right, it means the right seedling. Ask the right questions when you're going to buy the seedlings. You know, everything, not just even farming, starts with how you started. But farming specifically is with respect to the seedling that you're planting. Being a plantain, being a cocoa, being a coconut. So you need to get the seedling right. The nursery has to be right. And when we say get it right, I mean, you don't really have a lot of control. You probably won't have the opportunity to raise your own nursery like I did for myself. That is really successful for me. But then wherever it is you're purchasing your seedlings from, try and ask the right questions. Because if it's wrong, if you get it wrong, then you're doomed. Then it's going to be very difficult for you. So ask the right questions. And I think you can be very successful at get into coconut farming. Yeah. And I entreat people to get into it. As I said earlier, that coconut happens to be one of the farms. To me, I know people will dispute that you can do and relax. But that is if you can do it well. Properly planned farm, where you don't necessarily have to be in the farm always. Unlike some of the other tree crops. I'm a cocoa farmer and I know what goes into cocoa. It's tedious. It's very difficult. Rubber farm, before I started tapping rubber, is so tedious. But coconut, fortunately, is not that difficult. And I rely on, I say it's not difficult because of the things, the processes that I've put in place. Starting well, planting well, pegging well, even the lining and pegging has to be done very well. And if all these are met, you are in for a very beautiful journey in coconut. You know? And coconut is good. I entreat people to go into it. Okay, so let's use just 1 acre for an example. How much am I likely to make out of 1 acre coconut farm? So coconut, I would say, it's lucrative. Because it's a demanding commodity. You know, people drink coconut everywhere in Ghana. And it's one of the things that I can bet you that when you plant it, you certainly get a market for it. So, like I said earlier, an acre of coconut, you're looking at around 75 trees. 75 trees. And I said earlier that a tree can give you maximum, it can give you up to about 150. But being realistic, we can limit ourselves that, okay, you're going to be a very good farmer. You go through all the right farming practices. So you're targeting to have at least 100 nuts per tree for your coconut. Let's just use that averages. But as I said, it's not 100. It can be even less. That is depending on how you take care of your farm. But let's say you are a good farmer, you're going to go through the right processes and the right practices to probably get at least 100 per tree. So simply you can multiply 100 nuts by 75 trees. When you do that, how much do you get? 100,
please wait, you know me, I like money. 100 multiplied by
75 trees.
Hey,
how much is that? How many seedlings are that? So it means you're going to get what, 7,500 nuts.
Yes.
A year.
Yes.
I don't know how much. In Accra, there are times I buy coconut for 6 cedis.
It's 6 cedis.
There are times I buy 5 cedis.
No, it's 6 cedis right now. They've read budget.
Exactly.
So
let's say you're not even going to sell it yourself in Accra. You're just looking for, let's say, half of that money. So you're probably going to sell it for even half of that price for 3 cedis. So multiply 7,500 by 3.
By 3. Hey.
It means you have what, 22,500 per acre of coconut. And this is you doing an acre.
Just 1 acre.
75 trees. So if you want to do, let's say, 50 acres,
yes,
you multiply 22,500 by 50. How much do you get?
Hey, 1 billion.
It means you make 1 million. 1 million.
1 million.
Cedis.
There are people say 1 million.
Exactly. It means you can make 1 million cedis out of coconut, 50-acre coconut farm. But there are conditions to it.
Of course.
It's not that.
It's not magic.
Have 50 acres,
yes,
and you make 1 million cedis. You can make 1 million cedis out of a 50-acre coconut farm. But it all depends on what you do to the coconut
your management.
Farm. The management is key. It plays a key role in your success.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you know what we're going to do? I'm going to organize a webinar for Kwame and myself, so we can delve detail, because there are still questions I wanted to ask him, but you know, this goes live on TV here in Ghana, and then you watch the rest on YouTube. So let's consume this information, okay? And then we would organize a webinar for Kwame. He has rubber, he has coconut, cocoa, and many other things. Let's do a webinar so he enlightens us. All the questions you have, you would meet him one-on-one, and then we'll conclude with, my name is Anyonam. This has been the Ghanaian farmer. His number was mentioned in the interview. Take your time, pick the number, call him, and he'll be there to help you. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.